and I hope you are somewhat fluent in databases now. The commands we'll be using are simple, but you still need to understand them. Right. And I guess today we'll try scraping Amazon.in. We would be scraping Amazon.com, but it has bot protection, so I cannot scrape it multiple times. So we'll go with Amazon.in, right? So I'll start sharing my screen now. Alright, so is the screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So yesterday we were here. Alright. Um, I'll summarize what we did last time. What we basically did was let's open this file. Right. On Friday, what we did was I basically discussed how do we make spiders. Right. First of all, uh, the spiders are basically Python programs that do the main scraping part. All right. So I told you, I told you the spiders go into the spiders folder, and they have a class, and it has to be a class with any name. This could be anything. Then they need to inherit from this specific class, which provides it a bunch of functions, which basically automates the entire process. Right. Then you need to define a function with the exact name parse, right, which takes two arguments. First is the self part, and the second is the response part. Alright, the response part is what we get from the website, right? And before that, you have to name your website, name your spider, and the variable name has to be this exactly, and the starting URL uh, variable name has to be this exactly. Why is this? Because in the uh, spider class, these are already defined and left blank, right? So you basically we use that specific name, and these names are used in this class with the exact name. So these two variables need to be named exactly the same, right? This is what we discussed. Then we come to the items equals to for tutorial items. So we'll be discussing this today too. And let's move to the items class. And before that, what we need to do is we need to import it from the items file. Right now, the dot dot basically, I'll just what the dot dot here basically means. If I guess some of you have ever used PowerShell. So when you do cd dot dot, it goes to the previous directory. All right. So this dot dot tells you to move to the previous directory and look for a file named items, and from that import a class named for tutorial item, right, which is this class, right. So basically creating an item class is very easy. First of all, it has to be a class with any random name. All right. Then it has to inherit from the scrapper.items class, and then you just basically define your fields. Right. So right now we are, let's say, scraping the codes.to scrape website, as I told you yesterday, and we are scraping the title, the author, and the tag. Right. So what you basically do is uh, you declare the variable and you set it equal to scraper.feed. All right. This is basically very this is basically very easy. What it does is it sets all of these into a nice looking usable dictionary, right? So let's say you have four things you have to scrape. All right, so you give it another variable name, let's say tags, authors, let's say connection. All right, connection equals to scrapify dot feed. You do this and you are basically done. All right, this basically declares another field in your dictionary. All right, so we'll just remove this because it's not needed. Then we go here. I basically told you this part. We extract the div tag with the class code, and then we cycle through all of these codes, and then we extract the title, author, and the tag. And now here I use items and then the dot and then the title variable as I did here. All right. So this name and this name has to be exactly the same. All right. And as you can see here, before I did all this, I basically let's initiated the file. All right. I did this and then I yielded the item. All right. And then to move to the next page, what I did was I created a variable with any name. This could be anything. Then I looked at the CSS of the page, right, and I went to the li.next. That means I went into the li tag, which had a class next. That is what this dot represents. This dot basically means that whatever is next to it is basically a class, just like with CSS selectors, all right. And then I told it to go inside the list item with the class next, and then go inside the a tag, and from that extract the attribute href. All right, like we did here, this was for text. And to extract an attribute, what you basically do is you use the keyword attr, and in brackets the attribute you need to extract. All right, so again we got the next link, then we check if there's a next link. All right, and then we go to, then we check if there's a next link, and if there is a next link, we basically yield it. We do not return it, we yield it, because as I told you in the last class, this is a generator function. Right, this generates the response. Right, so we go to response.follow next link. Right, so we basically tell it to move to we basically tell it that the start URL variable we used here will be changed to this variable. All right, so this is what this part does. And the comma callback is equals to self.pass. What this does is it tells it what to do with the response again. All right, so what it does is in the response, okay, sorry, the response changes the starting URL to the next link, and then executes the self.pass with the new updated link. Right? This is what it basically does. So I guess this is clear and this is clear. Right. So let's see. Before we do the database thing, what you can basically do is you can go specify name of this paper is course. Right? So we go crawl UUOTES. Then we put an O, and then let's say I need to save it as click. So we did this part in the previous session. What it basically tells it to do is basically scrape the website, and then this -O is basically a scraper command which tells it to save the result in this file, right? Now the supported files are JSON, XML, and CSV, right? When I do this, this will do its thing, and it will take a while. We call the crawl command, right? Just see. We call the crawl command. What is so I guess that should be here. UOTS. Okay, for now we'll just remove this and see if this works. Because crawl is the right command for us. Crawl. Oh, alright, crawl is not working because we are not in the right directory. We have to go through. Go to get here, and now it should work. Yeah, we were not in the right directory. That is why it was not working. So it's doing its thing. We'll wait for a bit, and after it's done, you will see there here an item2 dot JSON file which we created. Alright. So we let it do its thing, and then yeah, and here's the file that I was talking about. So let's see if we can open. Yeah, this is the data we scraped. All right, here's the title. Then let's move forward. Here's the author, and here's the tag. Right. So we can save it as a JSON, as an XML, or as a CSV. But let's say we want to save it into a database. All right. So when you create a Square project, you get all these files. This file here, this is basically an empty file. I'll show this. What this init file basically tells is that this course tutorial folder is a Python package, right? So any folder which has this file in it will automatically become a Python package, right? You'll get this by default, this by default, this by default, and this by default. All right. So we'll go to the settings file, and this is also created by default. All of this is created by default, and by default, basically this pipeline.py is disabled. All right. So you need to first enable it. You first go down, and you will see this which says configure item pipelines. All right. So basically what was here previously, sorry, was basically, why can shift not working? It was basically this earlier. So I basically uncomment this, and this opens my pipeline. All right. Now all of this is basically the stuff you do, the settings of the script, which I'll try to um, explain. So basically, a bot name is the bot name is basically what the script tells the website who it is. Alright, so it tells the website that it supports the tutorial. Alright, this is the spider module. This is what when you use the crawl command, right? This is the folder where it goes to. Alright, and this is where the new spiders need to be created. If you change this to something else, and then in the crawl method, it would work exactly the same. Then we go here, and this is the bots.txt. Now I'll show you what bots.txt is. Let's say I go to amazon.in/robots.txt. You can see all of this. All right. Now, what is this? Is a set of rules that a scraper needs to follow. All right. So, let's say there's this set of data that is available on the website, but let's Amazon does not want you to get it. All right. So, let's say when you Google a product, it tells you the Amazon price and nothing else. All right, it tells you the Amazon price and does not tell you if it's available. That is because Amazon does not want you to do that. So what it does is it uh, sets up a robot.txt file which tells you that you cannot, as you can see right here, it says disallow product availability. What this means is the scraper cannot access this part, right? You can still access it if you do not follow the puts.txt, but ethically you need to do that, right? For example, it cannot access wishlist, it cannot do all of this, right? Whatever is disallowed here cannot do that. Cannot see if your item is dispatched, for example, right? So you must always put this to true, right? Because that is ethical and basically nobody would stop you, but yeah, you should basically set it to true always. Now we come to the maximum concurrent request. All right. Now, what this means is how many times the spider will hit the web page. All right. Let's say you put it to a very large number. All right. So this may basically overload the website and force it to go down. Right. So by default, it's set to 16. What this means is after 16 hits, it would stop. Right. And this is the delay in request. That means how many seconds basically need to be passed before the next request is sent. Then this is, as it says, concurrent request per domain and concurrent request per IP. All right. Per domain means that you can only hit Amazon, let's say 16 times. You can change this, but by default it's 16. And per IP means basically your current IP. Using your current IP, you can hit any website continuously only 16 times, right? So you know what cookies are. Cookies are used by your websites to basically identify you, right? So these I do not know what teleconsole is. This default request header is of no use. Yeah, and then there's this middleware. Alright, this middleware file is used for advanced scraping, right? I'm not gonna go into advanced scraping basically because I told you I basically explained scraping, so you can see how frameworks basically work. All right, so I'll not explain this part. This is basically advanced scraping, and it takes a lot of time to go into this. Right, I have to explain what this process. Not explain. I will have to edit these processes and do a bunch of stuff. So I'll be not doing that. And then we go down. This is the same middleware stuff. Then we go down again, and we come to the pipeline. All right. So we basically um, uncomment this pipeline, and it goes and finds the pipeline. Right. So what it does is it goes to the codes tutorial folder, not the folder, the package, as I told you, because as you can see, this file makes this a package. This up. Right. Then it goes to the pipelines file, and then it looks for a class called codes tutorial pipeline. Alright, which is right here. Codes tutorial pipeline. This will be already um, created for you when you create the project. But yeah, this is it. And this is basically the priority level. Alright, you can set many pipelines basically. Let's say one pipeline stores um, the books. Alright, another pipeline stores the let's say healthcare products, for example. Alright, so this sets the priority. Alright, the lower the priority, the first it execute. Yeah, right. So if it was 300, it is 300, and let's say there's another pipeline, right, which I'm not creating right now, but let's say there's another pipeline which has a priority of 200, right? So this will be executed first, and if the concurrent hit and all of those parameters are still available, then it would go to this, right? So there can be multiple pipelines, and those pipelines can be set according to their priorities, right? And then there's auto throttle, which is basically puts a stop to your what do you say, scripting if there is an overload. All right, this is the start delay, this is the maximum delay that can occur if this is reached. Let's say a 60-second delay is reached, your scripting would stop. And I guess auto throttle debug, this is what would set the debugger to true or false. And I guess that's it. This is basically, yeah, this is the caching part. All right, what it does is basically it downloads the file and basically caches it instead of re-downloading it over and over again, right? So we basically went over the settings file, and we come to the pipeline file, right? So the library we'll be using is called SQLite. All right, this is by default installed in Python. All right, and this is basically an SQLite library. All right, SQL and SQLite are very similar, except for a little small change, small limitations. Right, SQLite has SQLite has some minor limitations. Right. So we'll start with this file. What it does is basically we first create a class with the same name as in the settings file. Alright, you cannot change this, because if you change this, you'll have to go to the settings file and rename your pipelines variable. Right. Let's go here. Let's go to the settings pipelines. So this has to be exactly this, right? Now what what happens here is basically this function, all right? This function with the exact name, all right? This function is executed first, right? In reality, this function is executed, but this is not always there. This is what we do to initiate a class, as I told you in classes and objects class. Right. So this is a special data function. So basically, if you have this uh, initialized, this will be executed first. But if you do not have this file, this render function or magic function, if you want to call it that, if you do not have that function, this is the first function to be executed. Right? Please move out of the way. This is the first function to be executed. Right? We'll come to that in a minute, but we'll for now go as the steps tell us. All right. So we have an init function here. So this is executed first, right? And then we call our self.create connection. And one more thing is, all right, all of these functions until here, every function before this process item function can have any name, right? And are not called until you call them from any other function, right? So let's say if I do not call them here, right? So these two functions will not be executed, right? So we go to the init function, and this is executed first. So it goes here and it executes this entire thing. All right, it goes to this function. Sorry, it goes to this function and it does its stuff. All right. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to create a variable. Right, this could be any variable. All right. Then we call the sql.connect command, and we put in the database name. All right. What this does is, if there's a database, if there's an existing database with this name, for example, we have this name, we have this database with this name, so it connects to the database. Otherwise, it creates the database and then connects to it. Right. So this would never throw an error. Right. This would always either create it or connect to it. All right. Now we set a cursor to the connection. All right. So what this basically does is it is similar to a cursor in our files. All right. It will do what we it will execute what we tell it to execute. Right. This is the cursor here. Right. Let's say the cursor does whatever the keyboard tells it to do, and it does it to the file. All right. Similarly, this is what the cursor is for. All right. You initiate a cursor using the connection dot cursor. All right. This is the connection. All right. I cannot visualize it right now because I don't have an image for this. But this is the connection, and this is the cursor. All right. So you can think of it as a cursor as a cursor, and the connection. Let's say you can think of it as there's a connection between my keyboard and this file, which is being executed by this cursor. Right? This is how you can think of it. And the rest of the part is pretty easy. You have to basically go cursor.execute, right, and then the SQL command inside it. All right, I'm familiar with. I think you're familiar with SQL commands because I asked you repeatedly to go over them. So you just go cursor.execute, and then the SQL command you want to execute. All right. So today I'll go through them, and I'll give an assignment, and you'll have to type these commands for yourself. Right. So the first command is drop table if exists quotes underscore TV. That what this tells the database to do is it tells it that if there's a quotes underscore TV table already existing here in the database, in this database, you have to drop it. That is delete it completely. All right. Then it tells it to create a table with the same name, right, which has a title which takes text an author which takes text again, and tags which takes text again. All right, and then you close it. So this is exactly how you type in an SQL command. Right, now these could be lower cases obviously, but it is and let's say this is how this is how it has been accepted. Right, you type your SQL commands in uppercase. Right, so we did this, and this is where the execution stops. All right, here is what the init part told us to do. Then it skips over this function, right? Because it will not do this. Then it goes to the process item, the next part which is supposed to be executed. All right, so this function has to be the exact name process underscore item. It takes the item, um, the item from here. All right, the item we yielded here. Right, so it takes the item that was yielded here, and it takes the spider, right? The spider from here, from sorry, here, right? It takes this entire spider and what it yielded. All right, so these are the two important arguments that need to be here. And as you can see, I did not do anything. I just called self.store underscore db by passing this item. So this is it. So it moves to the above function, right? And this is similar to what we did. We executed. We say so we say insert into quotes underscore tb values. Now, what you would have seen is within this parenthesis, you would have seen straight values. All right, but we use a little different, let's say, method here. We put in these commas instead of the values, and then we put in a comma at the end of the command, sorry, at the end of the command right here, and then we put on these values inside another set of parentheses. Why we do this? Why we do this is because this prevents against a DDoS attack. Right? If you just simply use an F string here, it's an F string you use here, and you use, let's say, something like this, this, and you type in what you want to info, right? That would be prone to a DDoS attack. What this does is this basically this entire syntax, let's say, right? This entire syntax prevents a DDoS attack, right? So first we put in the item, and then we grab the title from here, and then we uh, put the first item here because there's a bunch of let's say garbage that is scraped with it. So we filter out the garbage by only taking the first part. So we put in the title, we put in the author, and we put in the tag. Right. Now, one thing you need to make sure is that these are inserted in the same way that they were initialized. Right? The title must come first, the author the next, and the tag the third. Right? They have to be in the same order. And after you execute this, you basically return the item. And when you return this item, it returns here, and it executes the remaining part. Right? If you miss out this item part, so if you miss out to return the item, it would not go back to the loop again. It would just execute the loop once, and that would be it. Wait a second, let me just plug in the PC. the wall, the right there. Alright. So this is what scraping basically looks like. This codes.py is your spider which does all the stuff. This is your containers which puts the data in dictionaries, and this part is what basically stores this stuff into your database. Right, so we have around 15 minutes left, so I guess I can try scraping for books on Amazon. So let me just put your incognito and let's say Amazon. Okay. And this is the wrong website. It have to be Amazon.com. You basically type books here. So what I would be doing for starters is only scraping this title because we don't have enough time. So I'll do this for now, and I guess I should do it in a non-incognito because my extensions are disabled. Here we are. So what I'll do is first I'll go here. I'll say verify. So that's the command to connect to it was all, and then this also. Verify. So this is not the command to basically connect to it. The command to connect to it is shell. Alright. So basically remove this and say shell. And now connected. Okay. So I'll say response.css, and I want the class for this. Right, so I use an extension called Selector Gadget. Right, this makes stuff easier for you. I use this. Alright, let's say I want this part. I click on this, and this is selected. I can see a bunch of things turned yellow. Right, so what this basically is telling us that this class is shared by this all of these yellow classes. Right, so let's say I do not want this, so I click this and it turns red. I do not want this. It's red, and this turns this too. So as you can see, now only the, let me just unscript this too. Now you can see only the titles that we want are here. Alright, so I basically, wait a second. Right, I copy this and I move to here and I just say CSS. CSS response. So CSS undercodes this, and I want the text part, so I'll go text and expect. Right, so if Amazon doesn't block me for some reason, this should work. Yeah. So as you can see, the first one is world's greatest books for personal growth and wealth. So let's go here. Go here, and as you can see, the first book here is exactly the same, right? And then the second book is NCRT book set class 9, where it's clip it from. So scrape this, scrape this, either guy. Alright. As you can see, the first one is scrape. Then, as you can see, this is not on the page. Alright. Wait a second, please. Let me just close it. Yeah. As you can see, this is not on the page, right? Now, why is this not on the page? Is because this part is hidden. All right. Let's say, yeah. If I do a class search for this, this exact name, this thing here, it would pop up. For example, this Ikagai book. All right. This will be on the next page, on the next to next page, or the next to next. Right. So because of the way the HTML is basically written, all right. So uh, the spider basically will only do what you tell it to do. You tell it to go into a sorry, you told it to go to a class called a and this. Right. So it went into this and it grabbed everything. All right. Now, for example, many of this, let's say I close Inspector Gadget, Selector Gadget. Wait a second, sorry. Close it, and I go to view page source, and let's say I search Ikigai. Let's let it load, and I search Ikigai. That is the name of it. Ikigai. It's a very long page, so the searching is taking a lot of time, and it did not return any results. But what basically happened here is, so yeah, what basically happened here is it looked at this page and it grabbed everything here. All right. Now, it also grabbed this part which was not visible, but it did not know that it only had to scrape basically everything that was only visible. All right. So let's say this is one of the shortcomings of scraping, that you do not know the data you scraped is exactly um, correct. All right. So it was scraped because it was in the HTML code. All right. And I guess that is it for today. I'll go over what I just taught you once again for now. Let me just put this on silent. Alright. So we went over this thing in the previous class. So I guess you understand it. I'll just go over the pipeline file. Okay. So it has to be it has to be exactly the same name as this right here. Then the first function to be called, if there is no init uh, function, right? If there's no init function, this is the first function to be called, which takes uh, the yielded item and the spider as an argument, and it has to return the item at the end so that the execution can resume. Okay, and this just a bunch of stuff. This is just here so that an exception may not occur. Because a database cannot create the same table twice. What this does is, if there's a database, you just drop the data. So if there's a table, you just drop the table and create a new table. This will prevent uh, it's a database error. Alright, this is what it's used for. And as I just uh, did, uh, as I just did an example, I scraped this page right here for the data we needed. Right now, this data can be cleaned on the basis of the books you do or do not need, but it is a very advanced topic which uses various middlewares and stuff. So we'll not go into this. I'll just come on to this for now. And we also went over how we can basically store stuff into uh, JSON, CSS, JSON, CSV, or XML file using scrapy. Call the name of the spider, or the name, sorry, and using a to command, then the file dot extension. Right, we went through this, and this basically concludes your entire scraping part. I basically went into scraping so that you can know how um, frameworks work. Right, and let me just stop sharing. And today is the 5th. On 6th and 7th, I have an assignment. I have some work to do. So on 7th or 6th, one of these days, there will be a holiday, and from the next day, we'll start with basically Django. All right. I was going to start with Flask, but Flask requires a lot of background knowledge, and a small project that can be done in Django in, let's say, 15 minutes will be done in Flask in 2 hours or 3 hours, because everything has to be initiated from scratch in Flask. On the other hand, everything is done for you in Django. Alright, so either tomorrow, not tomorrow, either day after tomorrow, or the next day on the 8th, we'll start with Django, and it would be a very interesting topic. Alright, so I guess that's it for today. Thank you, everyone. Motherfriend, please take the attendance. And after the
Yeah,
attendance
sure,
is
I've
done,
taken.
you can leave.
Yeah, thank you everyone. You can leave
Yeah.
now.
Thank you, guys.
Raj sir, are you here, sir? Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Raj sir. Good evening, Santosh ma'am.
Good evening.
Doing that.
Miss Munga and Shweta, you can leave.
सर आवाज नहीं आ रही. राज सर वो लेआउट उसका डिस्कस करना था इवेंट का, और इवेंट आपको ही हैंडल करना पड़ेगा.
तो पाइथन का जो वो था इवेंट.
हाँ,
ओके मैम.
तो वो
एंड
आप ही हैंडल करोगे. और जो ऑर्गेनाइजिंग वेबसाइट है मैं वो बता दूंगी. मैंने चेक किया था, तो वो जो D2D पल्स करके एक है, उस पे हो जाता है फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट. क्विज
ओके.
वगैरह अगर होस्ट करने हो, क्वेश्चंस होस्ट करने हो, तो वो मतलब राउंड्स हो जाते हैं, तो उस पे कर लेना. एंड आप ही उसके होस्ट रहोगे, जज मतलब जो. संतोष मैम क्या क्या क्राइटेरिया था? हाँ, आप ही मैनेज करोगे और आप ही जज रहोगे. और नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, फर्स्ट वाला जो राउंड है उसमें एमसीक्यू रखे थे ना अपन ने, 30 एमसीक्यू,
यस मैम.
30 मिनट.
यस
ठीक है. और जो सेकंड वाला है उसमें क्या बोलते हैं, कितने कोडिंग क्वेश्चन रखने हैं, 2 या 3?
मैम. फर्स्ट वाले में आई गेस 2 रख सकते हैं.
ठीक है, तो 2 अगर रखते हैं तो फिर 2 घंटे का ही रखते हैं.
यस मैम. वैसे
ठीक है,
2 कोडिंग क्वेश्चन 1 घंटा 1.5 घंटा मैक्सिमम. 1 घंटा
तो
मैक्सिमम
फिर
होना चाहिए. आधे घंटे में एक स्टेटमेंट सॉल्व हो जाता है.
हाँ ठीक है, तो फिर 1 घंटे का रख दो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. या फिर मेरे ख्याल से 3 क्वेश्चन कर लो, तो 2 मीडियम लेवल के हो जाएंगे. नहीं, 2 ही रहने दो यार, 2 ही रहने दो, मीडियम ही देना. और उनको एडवांस वाला सिस्टम ही नहीं रखते हैं.
ओके.
तो मीडियम क्वेश्चन रहेंगे दो, 30-30, मतलब 1 घंटे का टाइम रहेगा, 30-30 मिनट में सॉल्व करना है. और
यस.
क्वेश्चंस तो मैं ढूंढ दूंगी, ढूंढ के दे दूंगी. लीड कोड से बहुत सारी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, तो वो मैं दे दूंगी. तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, वो आप यूज कर लेना. और कोई राउंड तो होना नहीं. और हाँ, वो जो क्राइटेरिया रखोगे वो कैसे रखोगे, मतलब जो फाइनल सबमिशन वाला होगा, किसको
फाइनल
प्राइज दे.
सबमिशन में फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल तो सबमिशन टाइम के बेस पे जो जिसका फर्स्ट था उसका सबसे ऊपर. अगर बाय चांस 2 का वो तो सेम आता है जो हो नहीं सकता है. देन
हाँ हाँ.
एग्जीक्यूशन के बेस पे करते हैं. एग्जीक्यूशन टाइम जो है रनिंग
हाँ,
टाइम जो उसके बेस पे करते हैं.
वो देख लेना. अदरवाइज जो फिर एमसीक्यू अपन करवा रहे हैं ना, तो अगर क्लैश हो रहा है दो लोग का, तो फिर उनके एमसीक्यू वाले मार्क्स भी देख लेना कि किसके ज्यादा हैं.
यस मैम. वो भी कर सकते
तो
हैं.
इजी रहेगा कि अगर क्लैश हो रहा है तो फिर उसमें इजी रहता है.